In the last program, I talked to you about silence. Today, I want to talk to you about peace. Let me begin with a story. It is a story of two monks who had lived together for 40 years and had never quarreled even once. So one of them said to the other, "Don't you think it's high time we quarreled at least once?" And the second monk said, "All right, let's begin. What would we quarrel about?" And the first monk said, "How about this loaf of bread?" And the second said, "Okay, let's quarrel about the loaf of bread. How do we do it?" The first monk says, "Well, this bread is mine, belongs to me." And the poor second monk looked at him helplessly and he said, "Okay, take it." The moral of that story is that peace is not necessarily destroyed by fighting and quarreling. Do you know what destroys peace? Me. This belongs to me, and I'm not going to share it with anyone. When someone takes on that attitude, a fear and a selfishness builds up within his heart, and the heart becomes hardened, and that is the great enemy of peace, the selfish, hardened heart. Imagine a nation where a group of people owns a great deal of land or money or whatever, and they say, "We're not going to share this with the needy or with anyone." Imagine that in the United Nations, every nation took this attitude: we're only interested in our own good and we couldn't care less for others. How could there be peace in a situation like this, where there are hardened hearts, hardened nations? But let's not talk about nations. Let's talk about you and me. Look into your own heart. Can you say, "Oh, there's a certain amount of quarreling and fighting in my life, but there is no rancor, no bitterness, no hatred"? Can you say, "Oh, there is a fair amount of pain and suffering in my life, but there is no inner turmoil and conflict"? There is a great deal of activity and action in my life, but there's no nervous strain and tension. Can you say that? If you can, you are a lovely oasis of peace in the vast desert of this world. And the whole purpose of prayer is to spread this oasis everywhere. How would we do that? Well, let's not talk about it. Let's do it. Let's do it right now. Close your eyes, and I am going to do the same, so that we can together, you and I, do a simple spiritual exercise that won't last more than a minute or two. So close your eyes and get in touch with your body. Become aware of the feel of your clothes on your shoulders, the touch of your clothes on your back, your hands. Get the feel of your hands as they rest on something or touch each other. Get the feel of your thighs pressing against the chair, your feet touching your shoes or touching the floor. Once again, your shoulders, your back, your hands, your thighs, your feet. Again, shoulders, back, hands, thighs, feet. Now gently open your eyes and we shall end the exercise. Now I really wish I could be out there with you and get your reactions. What happened to you when you did this exercise that I proposed? Did you feel relaxed? Did you feel tense? Most people feel relaxed. A very few feel tense. Now, if you are one of those who feels tense, what I suggest is that you get in touch with your tension. What part of your body do you feel the tension in? And become as aware as possible of the tension, and you will gradually become relaxed again. In fact, if we were to do this exercise for 5 or 10 minutes, you know, many of you out there would begin to nod and doze. That's how relaxed you would become. Now, some of you will say, this relaxation exercise, does this bring the peace that you were talking about? Well, this isn't really a relaxation exercise, you know, it's an awareness exercise. All right, you'll say, but does it bring peace? Yes, it brings peace, even though you may find it hard to believe. You know what is likely to happen to you when you do this exercise? You're likely to come into yourself, and you're likely to feel all kinds of things, experience things, see things that would surprise you very greatly. You know, there's a lovely Indian story about God. He was tired of people. You know, they were always pestering him and asking him for things. So he said, I want to get away for a while and hide. So he collected all of his counselors and he said, now, where could I hide? What would be the best place for me to hide? And some of them said, hide on the top of the highest mountain on earth. And others said, oh no, hide in the depths of the ocean. They'll never find you there. And others said, the best place to hide would be on the far side of the moon. How would they ever find you there? And then God turned to his most trusted angel. And he said, where would you advise me to hide? And the angel smiled and said, hide in the human heart. That's the one place they will never think of searching for you in. Fanciful tale, isn't it? But it contains a deep truth. You know this simple exercise that I have proposed? It brings you to your heart. It brings you home. That's what it means to come back to your heart. You come home to yourself in a very simple way. All that you're doing is you're getting in touch with your body, but you're getting in touch with yourself, and that is important. And as I told you, in time, you will discover all kinds of mysterious things which will bring peace, and your heart will become soft, and the fears will disappear, and the conflicts will go. But for that, you need time. You know, there is no formula for instant peace. You have to find the time for it. All right, if you tell me you don't have the time, I'll compromise with you. And I'd recommend that you do this during the day. Let's suppose you're driving your car. Get the feel of the steering wheel. Get the feel of the seat of the car. Get the feel of your feet touching your shoes. Like, get in touch with your body. Keep your eyes open, of course, but for the rest, get the feel of the movement of your body when you're walking. That'll quieten you down, and hopefully you will get some taste of what this exercise can give you, that you will be sufficiently motivated to try the real thing, to really sit down and get in touch with the sensations in your body. You know, the way it is practiced in the East is this. You start from the crown of your head and you attempt to get all the sensations you can, face, neck, chest, etc., right down to the tip of your toes. Then you begin again in the crown of your head and go downwards. That's how it's practiced. Let me tell you some of the effects of this exercise. Though ordinarily this isn't done, you know. Ordinarily in the East, people are told, do it, and you will see. All right, what's likely to happen to you if you do this exercise? The first thing is you're going to become present. You're going to get into the present. And that is an extraordinary thing, you know, to really come to the present. Are you one of those people who cannot remember where they've placed things? Are you one of those people who's always tense and strained and harried? Are you one of those people who cannot concentrate, who cannot remember? Well, you need practice in getting into the present, just what I'm talking about. You know, there was a great guru who was talking to a group of business executives, and he said to them, just as the fish perishes, it suffocates and perishes on dry land, so you will perish if you get entangled in worldly affairs. The fish must get back to the water if it wishes to live. You must get back to your heart. So these poor business executives said, you mean we've got to give up our business and get back to the monastery? He said, oh, no, no. I didn't say get back to the monastery. Hold on to your business and get back to your heart. You see, getting back to the heart does not mean getting into some kind of mystical, mysterious faculty. No, no, no. It means come home to yourself. It means get into the present, and you will live. There's another thing that this exercise will give you, and that is it will help you to slow down. You know, speed is a very wonderful thing. I have nothing against it at all. It's a great thing, speed. But when speed becomes hurry, that's a poison. The Japanese have a very interesting saying. They say, the day you stop traveling, you will arrive. The way I'd put it would be, the day you stop rushing, you will arrive. You know, that reminds me of a father who was shepherding his children through a museum, and he's saying to them, come on, hurry up, because if you stop to look at everything, you'll see nothing. See, that's a parable of life. That's what all of us are doing. We're the whole time trying to save time, and we're missing out on life. You know, it's something like Jesus saying, you gained the world, but you lost your soul. I'm reminded of a fellow who was driving once with his wife, and he was, you know, he was crazy about speed. And then his wife looks at the map and she says, darling, we're on the wrong road. He says, never mind, we're making great time. So there it is, a parable of modern life. This is possibly what so many of us are doing. And you know what this exercise will do for you? It will slow you down. But you could do something else. You could slow down as a means to getting into this exercise better. How would you do that? Look, how long does it take you to get to work? 20 minutes? Make it 21. Now, some of you are going to think I'm crazy. Make it 21. How long does it take you to have breakfast? 10 minutes? Make it 11. Like, give yourself a pat in the back for every few seconds that you would add onto everything you're doing. Try it out for only a week. Then you won't have to believe me any longer. Slow down. You will come into the present. The third thing this is going to do for you, this exercise, and it is this. Let's put it this way. You know, there was an Indian businessman who told me he was very afraid to get into meditation. He was very reluctant to get into meditation because he said, you know, my business will suffer. Incidentally, these exercises that I'm giving you are for busy people, for active people, for energetic people. I'm not inculcating any mystical withdrawal, far from it. All right, so this businessman said to me, I was so afraid to get into meditation. Now, when he practiced these exercises that I am recommending to you, well, his business was doing twice as well as before. Do you know why? Because he was more integrated. He was more centered. And he was doing one thing at a time. That's one of the great blessings of prayer, contemplation, mysticism. You begin to do one thing at a time and you're totally there. So it's easy to see why his business prospered, why he was so much more effective and efficient. Now, before I go on, there's an objection that I'm pretty sure some of you are going to have. You're going to say, are these spiritual exercises? Is this meditation? That's right, spiritual exercise. You know, there are millions of people in the East who only do this and nothing else, and they attain heights of spirituality. That's the teaching of Christianity, isn't it? That God and spirituality is to be found in life, not by withdrawing from life. Remember in the previous program, I spoke to you about silence, and I told you God is found in life. The same thing here. Is it prayer, you will say? Well, it all depends on how you define prayer. If by prayer you mean talking to God, no. It isn't prayer because you're not talking to God while you're aware of sensations in your body, while you're aware of the movement of your body when you walk. But if by prayer you mean union with God, yes, sir, it is prayer. So you will find prayer and meditation in that simple exercise that I gave you of being aware of the sensations of your body. There are many other benefits that that exercise will give you. Spiritual benefits like acceptance, like a sense of perspective. But you find that out for yourself. What I'm going to do is propose, for those of you who would not have the patience or the perseverance to go on with that exercise, 2 simple spiritual exercises. The first is I call acceptance, and the second, perspective. How does one do these exercises? Let's begin with the exercise on acceptance. You remember that prayer, Lord, give me the grace to change whatever can be changed, to accept what cannot be changed, and the wisdom to know the difference. There are so many things in our life that we cannot change. We're powerless. And if we learn to say yes to these things, we will find peace, because peace is found in yes. You cannot change the ticking of the clock. You cannot change the death of a loved one. You cannot change the weather. You cannot change so many of your body's limitations and disabilities. Now make an exercise of all of this. The things you cannot change. Stand before each one of them and say yes. Because in doing that, you are saying yes to the Lord. You may find it difficult at times, then don't force yourself. But if you can find it in your heart to say yes, you are saying yes to God's will. And as the great Italian poet Dante says, in his will is our peace. Nearly 95% of the things that upset our peace are things that we cannot change. And if you develop this attitude, you will have peace even in the things that you are fighting to change. The second spiritual exercise that I suggest now is perspective. What's that? Think of the time when you were a child and you clung to some things so tenaciously. You did not want to give them up. You thought you would not be able to live without them. Or think of some of the things that you detested and hated when you were a child, or some of the things that you feared. How many of those fears and likes and dislikes persist till today? What happened to them? They passed away, did they not? Well, the exercise is the following. Make a list of the things that you are possessive of, that you are dependent on, that you don't want to let go of. And of each one of these things, say, this too will pass away. And make a list of the things that you dislike, that you cannot put up with. And of each of those things you say, this too will pass away. And you make a list of your fears for the future. And of each of those fears you say, this too will pass away. Well, I have proposed a number of exercises to you in this program, so I want to summarize everything I have said. The first exercise that I gave you was that great exercise of awareness of body sensations. You will find wisdom, acceptance, perspective, and so many other spiritual graces in this exercise. But you may want to try out some of the other ones. You may want to try out the exercise of slow down, or that other one, do one thing at a time. In fact, if you practice that exercise, you will be greatly helped if you internalize verbally every action that you are doing, like, now I am picking up my pen, now I am writing in the book, now I put the pen aside, now I close the book. This will seem strange to you, but you will not be able to judge these exercises until you give them a try. So try it. And then there are those last two exercises I proposed, the one of acceptance and perspective. In the next program, I will be talking to you about something that is intimately connected with peace, joy. But I invite you at the end of this program to stay right there and to try out that exercise that I suggested of being aware of the sensations of your body. You will get mighty little in the beginning, perhaps. You may find you are very distracted, but try it, and at the end of those 10 minutes, you will notice something of a difference. When Jesus was born, the angels sang of peace. And when Jesus died, he made a gift to us of his peace. My peace I give to you. So peace is a gift. We cannot produce it. We cannot create it. all we do by means of these exercises is dispose our hearts to receive it. Remember that story in the Bible of that Syrian general who went to the prophet in Israel so that he would be cured of his leprosy? And the prophet said to him, "Go and bathe in the river Jordan 7 times. And the man was indignant. He said, "Don't we have better rivers in my country that I would have to bathe in this river Jordan? I thought that the prophet would come out and lay his hands on me and cure me." And one of the servants said to the general, "Master, if the prophet had told you to do something difficult, you would have done it. He's asking you to do something so simple and easy. So try this simple and easy exercise. You can hardly believe the effects it will have on you, but when you experience those effects, you won't need to believe any longer. I want to end this program with those lovely words of St. Paul that could serve as a blessing on you and on me. May the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, guard our hearts and thoughts in Christ Jesus our Lord.